First, that we cannot ignore that tomorrow is a Labor Day, so I want to wish all of you a good, happy Labor Day. And I was wondering about this, can we find that our labor through our spiritual journey could be something that we can celebrate? As our civilization is giving us a break and say, yes, we recognize your work and we just will give you a day as a present. And I wonder about our spiritual journey. Can we have the same spirit of the Labor Day to think about everything that's happened in our life? Is there a moment where we can feel like our neighbors, our companions, our God is celebrating our journey with all the ups and the downs, with all the moments of tears and the moments of joy? And there is nothing good more than the psalm that we read today, Psalm 126. That has a very beautiful scene about the combination of life, about the whole bigger picture of life and not only one side. If you are visiting with us or this is your first time, I would like to get you involved in the conversation or the series of sermons that we've been talking for 6 weeks. We've been talking about the journey of Jews who lived outside of Israel going to meet their big dream. And their big dream is to make it once time to visit the Holy Land. A land there is no land on earth they compare to. The land that's very holy. The land that really they felt there is no place if they lived in Egypt or modern day Iraq or the Mesopotamia. All their dream is to save money to go and make one-time trip to Israel, to Jerusalem. And this psalm that's from Psalm 120 through Psalm 134, this psalm, we call them the Psalm of Ascension, the Psalm of climbing, the Psalm of going up. So they were thinking and dreaming like every step they were taking, it's actually a step to move forward and to move up to Jerusalem. And we know this journey is not a journey that's full of joy, but journey is full of risks and dangers. And how many times we romanticize the beginnings. Always the beginning has the sharp light. Everything starts with sharp beginning. But people get shocked when they move on and find like, oh, I thought the road was fun, but it's not fun anymore. I thought I was going to enjoy the ride, but the ride is very scary. It looks good from far away, but when you are on the ride, it feels different. So that's what happened to human being when we romanticize things from far away versus we are really in the motion. We are not romanticizing, seeing a documentary movie about somebody going through this beautiful land that we call America. It's different when you are the driver, when you go up the hills and downs, it's beautiful but also could be scary to go through these tight, narrow roads and driving in a very scary ways. I don't know if you've been to some of these areas, but I remember when I took a youth group long time to Montana. It was my first time. Very beautiful place. But I could not forget the idea when we're driving in a tiny bus in a small way and you see the cliff of the mountains down you. So this mixed feeling of you see the beauty around you, but at the same time look down and say, oh my gosh, what if something goes wrong here? And this is an image of life is mix of this, is the beauty, but also the dangers. The beauty of being in or being outside of the scene. And this is a group of people that they are walking their journey. They paid the money. They paid the time. And as I told you before, some of you know that I was born and raised in Egypt most of my life. And I was born and belonged to a Coptic community, the Christian minority in Egypt. And one of the titles they give to some older people in my village, they called him Holy Man. It's like, what? He's not a priest. He doesn't go to church. Why they give him this special title? This is like a big title. And I figured out this title was given only to those who were lucky to travel to Israel before 1948. For as some of you know the history of the region, before 1948 was more access. People can travel between different countries and go. And then when troubles happened between Israel and the Arabs' neighbors, things became different. To have a trip, even if you have the money, but you will not have access to Israel because if you're coming from the Arab lands. So these people were lucky because they have the money to make it, but also going to Israel before 1948 is different after 1948. So those of us who are Christian who try to stay out of the troubles of the conflict and the fight, we review only Israel as a holy land. What a wonderful thing where I can go and see and touch where Christ was born and walked and crucified. So this is beautiful image that most Christians in the Middle East draw about that. We have nothing to say about the conflict, and we try to stay in the peaceful side. But anyway, that's not always we have been seeing. And many times, Christians have been caught in between two difficult groups who are fighting all the time. Away from the politics, because this is not my sermon about today, but just really to focus about this holy man, that he was really all the time, as an old man will sit in the village and tell us about the story about, he said, I use all tools to go to Jerusalem. He said, I rode donkey, horses, camels, ship, train. He used all these things. And this time it just goes back in your mind, before 1948, in the Middle East, not in the West. So using an airplane, that was something huge. Just imagine that. So that was the only tool he can use. Even it was very painful and very difficult. But he will talk about it with a deep joy. It was like, I made it. I walked there and I saw where they told me this is where Christ was born. This is where he talked to his disciple. This is where he did this miracle and that and this and all of these things. And people are just happy when they connect what they believe into something they can touch and feel. And that's what we lack today in our spiritual journey as Christians, that we became so rational to sometimes even would not honor that feeling of smelling of the areas, feeling the sense where I can touch things. And I think more as Protestants, I think we can criticize ourselves too, because of our heritage coming out of the Catholic Church. We became really condemning all these kind of feelings. We are the rational one. We are the one holding the Bibles. We are not using this smoking that using in the church. All these idols they are worshiping in the church. And we run away from that. Yes, we theologically we disagree with that. But there is some power for a human being when they start to feel, when they walk into a church and the smell of the candle and the touch of something. That's our human being. Even if some people twisted and theologically misunderstood, when you see a statue in front of you, you can see it as a piece of art and something to nurture. We're not worshiping idols. We're not living anymore in the first or second century. We are not anymore in the fight between the Catholic and the Protestant 500 years about worshiping idols or worshiping Virgin Mary or not. We can grow out of that and see things with a good perspective. And understand that as human, the more we use of our senses, the more we feel and we get nurtured. We can use things with a different perspective. We can review all of these things. Do not forget that it was not a long time ago, even for Protestants, to have a stained glasses, that was a forbidden thing. To have any kind of art in our church, that was a forbidden thing. Because of our background, that we were born out of the Catholic tradition, and we were so anti anything that's being portrayed, has an image and feature. I understand when our ancestor did that, but today we can review it in a better way. We can celebrate a piece of art. We can see it and we do not need to worship it. We can review it not as a children, but as an adult. So this is why we may today feel like why this is a big deal for people to spend the money and the time to walk to Jerusalem. Why this was a big deal for somebody to put their life really in danger. Because the journey itself was part of a spiritual transformation. Maybe they were thinking about, once I go to Jerusalem, I'm going to get the big reward. But they didn't know that every steps they were taking on the road, they were getting the reward every day and every moment. How many times we get really caught in the idea of, if I get there, what if really the powerful thing is, every time you take a step in this life, you are getting an immediate reward in your life. How many times we lose the joy of being on the road and understand that, yes, there is a final destination. but there is everyday destination that God wants to teach you about. As we see in this psalm, this wonderful image that this guy is giving us about the image between two people. And as today, as we're celebrating the Labor Day, and I know that we for a long time understood labor is one of the curse for a human being. Where we got that? We got it from the Old Testament, right? When they say when we fall from heaven, when we got out of the garden, the paradise, whatever you like to call it, was like, okay, so every time we feel like, oh my gosh, I hate my job, oh, I remember, because God, that's God, how God cursed us. He told us we have to work. Maybe that's our immature way, because that's we got it from the Old Testament. But really, labors can be a wonderful thing if we start to think about. Is my labor really has more meaning than what I'm doing and what I am getting out as money? That's what I used to tell myself and my colleagues in ministry, or anybody work anywhere. There is no job that's better than others. And I say always be careful for those who work clergy clothes like me and preach from here. They think they are doing more holier work. They actually could be farther from God than those who are doing regular work. Do not be intimidated by that. There is no, when you think about the idea of being called to what you are doing, do not only think about pastor or priest or deacons, all these people with fancy titles. People who are having the fancy titles, they are a big risk. Because we are doing the business, and when we lose the joy of knowing this is not just a business, this is something I need to feel that I can feed my own self. So those who are doing God's work as a work, they are in big dangers for not enjoying God's life and God's Spirit. And those of you who are doing regular work, you think it's a boring work or regular work, just you need to change your mind and know that whatever you are doing great thing. And a great person, a great character that I want to celebrate today through this sermon is the image of a farmer. A guy that's living somewhere far away from somewhere in Minnesota. He's not going to make it to the news. He's not going to be on the newspaper. But he wakes up every morning and plants seeds. And whatever products he makes, or the eggs that comes to you and you never thought about where these eggs that you are eating on your breakfast, where they came from. Or the fresh fruits or vegetables that you enjoy on your, yes, you paid money, but your money worth nothing without this wonderful farmer somewhere that we do not even know his or her name, that the water, their fruits and their vegetables was their tears and was their sweat. This is the people that I want to celebrate today and recognize every farmer in our state, in our nation, in everywhere. We hear about them when it's politicians try to get their votes, but nobody hear about them, about their hard work. When everybody wants just to take them to be part of their lobby in their life, but nobody knows how hard work they are, and really our money will be worth nothing without their work and their wonderful commitment. And this image today, as I celebrate them as an ensemble of wonderful way of people who do work, I think I can survive for not having a pastor for a year in my church, but I think I cannot survive for a week not having a farmer doing their own job. That's the reality. So that's what we just need to be honest and recognize these people and let them know that they are celebrated all the time, not just one day of the year. And this image that's really very close to my heart and bring a lot of joy when he picturing the writer, picturing those who are really struggling about how do I read my present in the light of my difficulties. And he drew this wonderful image of a farmer holding on his back the seeds, walking in a very hot weather. He's not in Minnesota, he's in the Middle East, just to remember that, in a hot summer day. That's the picture the psalmist is giving us. Holding on his back the seed, walking in pain, going the road, try to plant the seeds there. And he's giving us that. He say, use your imagination now. What could happen? What's going in this farmer's mind? Was he feeling, oh my gosh, this is a very hot day. This is a very hot job. I do not like my job. I'm going to plant the seed and I have no idea what's going to turn out. Do you know how many times the crops can go corrupt? Do you know how many times the weather can just destroy your efforts? Do you know how many times bad circumstances can take all your hard work and be like, I did nothing? Do you think this farmer does not have all these fears in his head? But the wonderful thing that, yes, while the fear is in his head, while all these bad birds flying over his head, he's not standing, he's moving. While all these feelings and ideas and difficult memories, he's not frozen. Yes, I have fear. Yes, I'm worried. Yes, I don't know what could happen. But all these fears and part of who we are as human is not paralyzing me from keep doing what I'm doing every day. And he said, because of this, insisting on hope, on something good will come out of that. And I know there's a lot of risk. And the other image is a farmer coming back, holding on his shoulder the harvest. And he's happy because he saw the result. He saw what came out. He saw that, but he's saying between this, what's happened to a human being between these two different events? The beautiful image of tears and laugh. The beautiful image of faith that somebody is going to plant a seed and he's taking 99% risk. That's more risk than stock market, whatever risk we're thinking of today. 99%, he's totally under God's mercy and under the weather mercy and whatever is going, the mercy of the soil and many elements. And he knows that his chance is 1%. And he go and he plant it. The beautiful image about that our life is all of these things. Our life is not just the moment. If you go through a season of your life and you feel you are going through a season of tears, this is one season. As our whole year is full of 4 seasons, without the 4th season, we'll have no life. Without the 4th season, we cannot call it a year. So the full image always giving us understanding. Yes, you may go through an autumn, but there is always a spring comes to your life. You may go through a hard moment, but that's what makes you. And at the same time, if you're going through this joyful moment and you feel like life is dancing and life is good and you're carrying the harvest, God is saying, be careful. Who's in charge? God reminds you, because those who are really feel down because of fear, those who are up, they are really in danger to be full of themselves. So God is saying, who's in charge? Who is there with you when you are so scared and you have only 1% hope and God just gave you, surprise you in a good way? When you come back with your harvest and dancing and laughing and feel life is good and everything is perfect, God say, be careful. Who is there nurturing the seeds under the soil? Who is there bringing things together? Who is there making the elements of climates and atmosphere to make your work is doing good? And this is really a wonderful story for all of us to remember that who is in charge. And if you are in the season of tears, remember there is always a season of joy that's coming. And if you are going through the season of joy, remember to return your joy to the source of your joy in your life. This is why God is God of all ages. This is why we're going to visit our past and celebrate everybody who walked through our church. All these pastors who give you a good time or hard time, all these deacons and elders. That's why I just want one time, people will walk me around and show me all aspects of everybody who planted any seeds in this church. We want to celebrate it. We want to know that many times you plant and you move on, because what we are harvesting here today at Shakopee is not what me and you planted. There are a lot of wonderful people who are not here. They went to heaven. Then even maybe we do not know their names, but they planted something. We are here today because of those who planted something. You do not wait there and say, oh, let's wait for the harvest. They plant and they move on. If you are lucky, if you plant something and you start to feel the result and the seed, to feel the harvest. But also remember that if you are a true Christian, you plant and you move on because you are harvesting something that somebody else planted, not you. And if you do the same, then the Christian circle will continue. I plant something, My brothers and sisters who will come after me will harvest it. The same way today I am harvesting what somebody else planted, and they have no idea. The stranger Egyptian coming from so far away, he will come and build something based on that. This is what we call Christian faith that keeps past and present and future alive and active and wonderful story that we